His coworker tilted the phone so the whole table could see. You are beauty Heir, spotted with mystery date. Han saw his boyfriend Rin first, then the person next to him who had their face blurred, but Han did not need to see the face. He knew his own jacket. He knew his own body. He knew exactly when that photo had been taken. The caption read, Sungrin Hwan, Alpha Heir to Yua Beauty Group. Alpha? Heir? Han looked up from the phone. His co-workers were still talking. He stood up and without saying a word walked to the bathroom. He pulled up the article on his own phone and read it again. Sungrin Hwan, Alpha, Heir to Yua Beauty Group. The Rin he knew, the one he had been dating for months, was a beta who worked in operations. But the article was saying Rin was an alpha and the heir to the company Han clocked into every morning. He sat on the lid and pressed his hands flat on his knees to stop them from shaking. Was everything he knew about Rin a lie? Before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. I read every comment. Now back to the story. It started with a notification on a screen. Han had downloaded Link Beta months ago, back when he was still working reception at a staffing agency and coming home too tired most nights to do anything but lie on the couch and scroll. Link Beta was the default for people like him. No pheromone compatibility scores, no designation filters, no algorithm trying to calculate chemistry from biology. Just profiles, photos, conversations. The way most betas met each other. Han was 24, a beta, and completely fine with both of those facts. His friends were mostly betas. His life operated in the comfortable middle ground between alpha intensity and omega vulnerability, and he had never once wished it were different. He had never dated anyone, not for lack of trying. He had been on the app for months, met a handful of guys for coffee or dinner, and every one of them had been perfectly fine and completely forgettable. Nice conversations that went nowhere, second dates that felt like obligations. He was starting to think the problem was him, that maybe he was too picky or too quiet, or just not the type of person who made someone want to come back for more. He just wanted to meet someone who was honest and funny, and did not treat dinner conversation like a job interview. Then one night, scrolling through profiles without much expectation, one stopped him. The photo was a close-up, slightly off-center, like someone had taken it mid-laugh, and the guy had not bothered to retake it. Dark hair, sharp jaw. His bio was short. I'm told I'm intense. Decide for yourself. Han matched with him late that night. The guy's name was Rin. The first message came almost immediately. What's keeping you up? Han stared at the screen. Most guys led with, hey, or something about the weekend. This guy just asked a real question at midnight like they already knew each other. He typed back, bad day at work, long story. I've got time. You don't even know me. That's why I'm asking. So Han told him about the long shift, the phones that would not stop ringing, the commute home in the rain. And Rin listened, asked follow-up questions, not surface ones, the kind that made Han realize this stranger was actually paying attention. You sound tired, Rin said after a while. I am. Go to sleep. I'll be here tomorrow. And he was. They talked every night after that. Not about anything important at first, just the random stuff that fills the hours between midnight and sleep. What they watched, where they ate, complaints about weather and commutes. But Rin had a way of steering conversations past the small talk without Han noticing. He asked real questions, and then actually listened to the answers. Han was not used to that. He liked it. Fast, without any of the usual caution. Their first date was at a small place near the waterfront. Rin was already at the counter when Han arrived, and he had saved the seat next to him by draping his jacket over it. He looked up when Han walked in. Did not wave, did not stand. Just watched him cross the room with a focus that made Han's neck warm before he even sat down. Hi, Han said, sliding onto the stool. Have you been waiting long? Got here early. Rin was already scanning the menu, but his body had turned toward Han the moment he sat down, angled in, close, like he was blocking out the rest of the restaurant without thinking about it. I ordered us water. Wasn't sure what you'd want to eat, so I waited. That's very organized of you. I like to be prepared. He looked at Han directly, held the look. You're taller than your photos. Han's ears went hot. He did not know why. It was just an observation. But Rin said it steady and unhurried, like he had all the time in the world to look at Han, and Han forgot what he was going to say next. You're more intense than yours, Han managed. I've been told, they ordered. Rin took charge of it naturally, not in a controlling way, just someone who had opinions about food and wanted Han to eat well. He kept pushing dishes toward Han's side of the counter. Try this one. This one's better though. Wait, you haven't touched the one on the left. Han stole a piece of pork straight off Rin's plate before they had even finished their first round. Rin looked at him, not offended, amused. Did you just take my food? You were feeding me everything else. I figured your plate was communal by now. Han grinned at him, and Rin's mouth curved, slow and warm. Fair enough. Also, that piece was better than all the ones you gave me, so you were holding out. I was saving the best one. For yourself? For you. I was working up to it. He slid his whole plate across the counter toward Han. Just take it. I ordered too much. Han looked at this man who had just given him his entire dinner on a first date, who had saved him a seat with his jacket, who had stayed up late listening to a stranger complain about work and thought, oh no. They closed down the restaurant, walked along the waterfront after. The city lit up across the water, ferries cutting slow lines through the dark. Rin walked close. At some point his hand found the small of Han's back to steer him around a puddle and then just stayed there. Cold? Rin asked. I'm fine. Rin took off his jacket and put it around Han's shoulders before Han could argue. It was warm from Rin's body and smelled like laundry detergent and maybe cologne, though Han could not quite place it. He pulled it tighter. Now you're going to be cold, Han said. I run warm. Is that your way of saying you're hot? Rin laughed, full and surprised. That's your way of flirting? Was it bad? It was terrible. Do it again. Han bumped his shoulder into Rin's. Rin bumped back. They kept walking, closer now. So, what do? Han asked. Operations side of a big company. Boring stuff. Lots of meetings. Rin said it easily, without tension. Just a guy summarizing a job he did not find interesting enough to talk about on a date. Which company? Yua Beauty. Han stopped. Wait, seriously? What? I just got hired there. Marketing. I start in a couple weeks. Rin stopped walking. Han turned back to look at him. What? Yua Beauty? Rin's eyebrows had climbed. Seriously? Yeah. Junior marketing coordinator. Lowest possible rung on the ladder, but I'm excited about it. Why? A pause. Then Rin laughed, this short, startled sound that caught him off guard. Because I work there too. Han blinked. You're joking. I'm not. Operations side. Different floor, completely different department. I don't think I've ever even been to the marketing wing. That's insane. It's destiny, Rin said, and then caught himself. His face closed for half a second, like he had said more than he meant to. Statistically improbable, at least. Han grinned at him. Destiny, huh? I didn't say that. You absolutely said that. I heard it. It's on the record now. The corner of Rin's mouth pulled. Not quite a smile. The closest he got when he was trying not to give ground. Forget it. Never. They laughed about it, marveled at the coincidence. A city this size, and they had both ended up at the same company. Rin said it would be fine. Different floors, different worlds within the building. Han would be in marketing on the 6th floor. Rin was vague about his exact location, but said operations was up a few levels. They would probably never cross paths at work. We could be work friends who accidentally have dinner together sometimes, Rin said. We could be co-workers who happen to hold hands on the way to the elevator. Now you're getting ahead of yourself. Am I? Rin looked at him. The waterfront lights caught his face, and Han thought, very clearly and with very little caution, I am in trouble. They kissed goodnight outside Han's building. Rin's hand on his jaw, gentle and certain. A kiss that made him forget there was ever a time before it. Han floated up the stairs to his apartment and did not stop smiling until he fell asleep. The next 2 weeks were the best of his life. They texted constantly. Rin sent photos of meals he was making and asked what Han wanted for their next dinner. Han sent back heart emojis and "surprise me," and showed up at Rin's apartment to find the table set and dinner on the stove. Rin's apartment was nicer than an operations coordinator's should have been. Han noticed but did not say anything at first. The kitchen was big. The appliances were good. The view was the kind you paid for. When Han finally mentioned it, Rin shrugged and said the building had been cheaper when he moved in. Han let it go. Rin was a good cook. Better than good. He paid attention to it, cared about it, treated feeding Han like it mattered. Han sat on the kitchen counter and kept him company while he worked, stealing bites before the plates were ready. And Rin would tap his hand away and then let him steal another one anyway. They went to a movie and Rin held his hand through the whole thing, thumb rubbing slow circles on Han's knuckle. And Han spent more time watching Rin's profile in the dark than watching the screen. They discovered they both liked walking in rain, hated loud bars, and could sit in comfortable silence without either of them needing to fill it. Rin paid for everything. Not aggressively, just naturally, like his card was always out before Han's hand reached his wallet. When Han pushed back, Rin said, "I got it," and moved on. When Han pushed harder, Rin said the restaurant owed him a favor, or the tickets were free through work, or he had a gift card. The excuses were flimsy but delivered so casually that arguing felt like making a scene. Han started keeping a mental tab. He would pay Rin back eventually. He just had to figure out how to outpace someone who apparently had a gift card to every establishment in Seattle. One night, walking back from dinner, a drunk alpha stumbled into Han on the sidewalk and grabbed his arm to steady himself. Grip too tight, fingers digging in. Before Han could even react, Rin was there. He did not shove the guy or make a scene. He just stepped in, put his hand on Han's back and angled his body between them. His shoulders squared, his chin dropped half an inch, and the drunk let go and moved on without a word. Rin kept his hand on Han's back for the rest of the walk home, warm and steady, like he had forgotten to remove it, or like he had not wanted to. Han did not mention it, but he noticed. Rin always walked on the street side of the sidewalk. His eyes tracked the room when they sat down somewhere new, clocking exits and crowds before settling. He angled his body toward Han in public spaces, half a step closer than casual, creating a pocket of space that belonged to just the two of them. Han had never been with someone who did that. He liked it. Rin was careful about certain things. He deflected personal questions about his family with practiced ease. When Han asked where he grew up, Rin said, "around," and steered the conversation somewhere else. When Han asked about his exact role at work, Rin said, "corporate stuff." You'd fall asleep, and then asked Han about his day instead. Han noticed the deflections but did not push. Everyone had their pace. And Rin was so present, so attentive, so focused on the details of Han's life that the gaps felt small. Then Han started at UA Beauty, and the gaps should have started closing. His first day was overwhelming in the normal way. Badge activation, laptop setup, a tour of the marketing floor led by a cheerful coordinator who spoke at double speed. The office was sleek. Glass walls, natural light, the faint ambient scent of whatever fragrance the company was currently pushing. Han's desk was a cubicle near the window with a dying plant someone had left behind. His team lead was a beta named Wade, 3 years older, sharp in a relaxed way. The kind of person who knew everyone in the building and remembered their coffee orders. He took Han to lunch on day 1 and gave him the real orientation. "Marketing is fine," Wade said, stabbing a piece of lettuce. Good people. Decent work. Reasonable hours unless a launch is coming. The real thing to know is that this is a family company. The Huans own it. Father ran it forever. Son took over about a year ago. Everyone's still adjusting. What's the son like? Mr. Huan? Smart, quiet, not the type to make speeches for fun. Kind of private, which drives the gossip crowd crazy. You'll see him maybe twice a year at all-hands meetings unless you end up on a cross-department project, which at your level you won't. Is he any good? Wade shrugged. Revenue's up. New product line is killing it. He restructured 3 divisions and nobody got laid off, which in this industry is basically a miracle. So yeah, he's good. Han filed this away and forgot about it. The CEO was a name on a letterhead. Han's world was the 6th floor. His cubicle, his dying plant, and the product briefs that landed in his inbox. But there was Rin. They developed rituals fast. Rin got to the building earlier than Han, so most mornings he would be in the lobby when Han came through the doors, pretending to check his phone while obviously watching for him. They would walk to the elevator together, shoulders brushing, and the moment the doors closed and they were alone, Rin would reach for his hand. 3 floors. That was what they had. Han got on at the lobby. Rin stayed until a higher level. For 3 floors, their fingers were laced, Rin's thumb drawing slow circles on Han's knuckle, neither of them looking at each other, both of them smiling. The doors would open. Their hands would drop. Han would walk to his desk and not stop smiling until he sat down. Some mornings they got coffee at the shop across the street before work. They sat at the counter by the window and Rin always ordered for both of them because he had memorized Han's order after the second date and seemed personally offended by the idea of Han having to repeat it to a barista. Ahmame, at work, they were careful. Different floors, different circles, no overlap. But sometimes Han would be crossing the lobby and catch Rin heading for the executive elevators, and their eyes would meet across the marble expanse, and one of them would do something small. A raised eyebrow, a barely there nod. Once, Rin mouthed, "Tonight?" across the lobby, and Han had to physically turn away, so his co-worker would not see him grinning like an idiot. There were moments that felt stolen. Once, they ended up in the same elevator by accident during lunch hour. The car was empty. Rin leaned against the back wall and gave Han a look that had no business existing in a corporate elevator, and Han said, "Don't." And Rin said, "I'm not doing anything." And Han said, "Your face is doing something." And Rin laughed so hard the sound bounced off the metal walls. Another time, Han was coming back from the print room and passed Rin in the hallway on a floor neither of them usually occupied. Rin's hand caught his as they passed, just fingertips, just for a second, and then they were walking in opposite directions and Han's pulse was doing something medical textbooks would frown upon. These were the moments Han collected. Small and warm, and theirs. 4 weeks in, Han started noticing things at work. Not about Rin, about the company's upper floors. Occasionally, he would see a group of people moving through the building's glass-walled corridors on the executive level. A cluster of suits around a central figure. From the 6th floor, looking up through the atrium, they were small and indistinct. Han knew one of them was the CEO, because the cluster moved with that unmistakable gravity, bodies orbiting a center. There was a man who always seemed to be right next to the central figure. Polished. Perfect posture. He looked like he had been assembled from a catalog of professional competence. Han assumed naturally that this was the assistant, the one Wade had mentioned offhandedly as the CEO's shadow. And there was the figure at the center. From 6 floors down and across an atrium, Han could not make out details. Just height, dark hair, a way of moving that was unhurried and deliberate. His co-workers were less restrained. "Did you see Mr. Huan this morning?" A woman from his team leaned against the printer, fanning herself with a report. "He walked through the lobby and I forgot how to swallow my coffee." He's not that special, another co-worker said. He's just tall. He is objectively, scientifically gorgeous. That jawline could be studied in a lab. You know he's an alpha, right? Obviously. You can't tell from his scent because he's on suppressants, but look at him. I heard one of the Omega assistants on his floor said even suppressed his scent is intense, like she could feel it from down the hall. Must be nice being an Omega. We can't smell any of that. I am aware. I am allowed to have eyes. Han listened to this with mild bewilderment. He had barely seen the CEO, and both times the man had been surrounded by bodies, half visible, more concept than person. That weekend, lying on Rin's couch with Rin's legs tangled with his, Han brought it up. My team is obsessed with the CEO, he said, scrolling absently on his phone. Like, embarrassingly obsessed. Half of them can't get through a sentence about him without giggling. Rin's hand, which had been tracing idle patterns on Han's ankle, went still for a fraction of a second. Yeah? They keep saying he's incredibly good-looking, and I honest to God cannot figure out what they're seeing. I've only spotted him from across the atrium, and I thought the polished guy standing next to him was the actual CEO. The polished guy? Yeah, you know. Perfect suit, perfect hair, looks like he was manufactured in a boardroom. I figured he was in charge and the other one was his assistant. Rin was quiet for a beat. Then he made a sound that was not quite a laugh. You thought the assistant was the CEO. In my defense, the assistant looks more like a CEO than the CEO does, from a distance at least. Maybe up close it's different, but I literally cannot tell. Maybe you just need glasses. My vision is perfect, thank you. I think my co-workers are just projecting because he's rich and they've assigned attractiveness retroactively. That's a theory. It's a strong theory. Han rolled onto his stomach to look at Rin properly. Have you ever met him? You work in the same building. Another pause. Barely perceptible. Once or twice, in passing. And? And what? Is he as stunning as everyone says? Rin pressed his lips together. I think people see what they expect to see. That's a weirdly philosophical answer. I'm a weirdly philosophical person. Rin tugged Han's ankle, pulling him closer. Can we talk about something other than our company's CEO? I have very strong opinions about the movie we're watching tonight, and I need to brief you. Han let it go. He always let the deflections go. Months passed. 2, then 3, then 4. The relationship deepened because both of them were trying. Rin met Han's friends and won them over fast. He was good with people when he wanted to be, warm and focused, remembering details Han had not expected him to hold on to. His most skeptical friend pulled Han aside after the first group dinner and said, "Okay, I get it now." Han pressed occasionally about meeting Rin's family and friends. Rin deflected every time with variations of, "My family's complicated and I keep my circles small." Han understood complicated families. His own parents had moved back to Korea after he graduated, back to the life they had left behind before he was born. They called once a week from Seoul to ask if he was eating enough and then spent the rest of the call talking about the neighbors. They were proud of him but far away, and Han had gotten used to figuring things out on his own, so he did not push. But there were moments. Rin's phone would ring and he would glance at the screen and his whole body would change. Shoulders squaring, jaw tightening, eyes going flat. He would excuse himself, take the call in another room, and come back a while later with the warmth manually switched back on. Han noticed. He always noticed. He just did not know what he was noticing. Once, walking through a department store together on a weekend, a woman in a designer coat froze when she saw Rin. Her face went white. Rin steered Han down a different aisle so smoothly that Han did not register the maneuver until later, lying in bed that night, wondering why a stranger had looked at his boyfriend like she had seen a ghost. There were good moments too. So many that the strange ones dissolved in the volume. And then, about 2 months in, Rin disappeared. He texted Han on a Wednesday evening, said he was not feeling well, needed a few days, would call when he was better. His messages were short and off. Han offered to come over, bring food, keep him company. Rin said no, sharp about it. Stay home, I'll be fine. Just need to ride it out. Han stayed home, texted every morning. Rin replied in fragments. Still down. Getting better. Miss you. Rin came back 4 days later looking hollowed out. He showed up at Han's apartment with groceries and started cooking without being asked, like he needed to do something with his hands. What was that? Han asked from the counter. Bad few days, happens sometimes. Rin did not look up from the cutting board. You said it's cyclical. What does that mean? It means it comes back. I manage it with medication. Sometimes the medication doesn't fully cover it. Han watched him. Rin's shoulders were tight. He was choosing his words too carefully for someone who was just sick. It happened again a couple of months later. Same pattern. The text, the silence, the return. This time Han just texted, "I'm here," every morning and waited. He did not figure it out until later, after the tabloid, after everything. Looking back, the pattern was obvious. Every few months, days of isolation, the medication that did not fully cover it. Rin had been going through his ruts alone, suppressed but not enough, with no one to help him through it. And he had never once asked Han to carry that weight, because a beta could not do what biology demanded anyway. Han could be there. He could cook, sit close, hold Rin's hand through the aftermath, but he could not give Rin what an Omega's body could give during those days. He knew that. It did not stop him from wanting to. One evening they were getting coffee when the barista got Han's order wrong for the second time. Han shrugged it off. It was fine. He would drink whatever. But Rin leaned over the counter and said, in a voice Han had never heard before, he asked for iced, not hot. This is the second time. It was barely above speaking volume, polite, technically, but the temperature behind it made the barista's smile freeze. The drink was remade in seconds. Rin turned back to Han and his whole face softened like he was flipping a switch. Huh. Sorry, that was unnecessary. A little bit. I don't like it when people don't pay attention, especially when it's for you. Han looked at this man who had just gone cold over an iced coffee and was now holding the door open for Han with his hand on the small of his back, guiding him through like the sidewalk outside was a minefield, and thought, there are two of him, and the one who shows up for me is a completely different person than the one everyone else gets. Rin showed up at Han's apartment on a Tuesday with grocery bags and an apron he had apparently bought just for cooking at Han's place. Your kitchen is a disaster, he said, clearing counter space like clutter had personally wronged him. How do you live like this? He cooked while Han sat on the counter and handed him things, and they talked about nothing and everything. The meal was good. It was always good when Rin cooked. They ate on the kitchen floor because Han only had one chair and neither of them wanted to sit at the table alone, and Rin leaned against the cabinet and fed Han pieces of chicken off his fork, and Han let him, because somewhere in the last few months he had stopped pretending this was casual. Rin came to Han's work neighborhood for lunch sometimes, never inside the building, never anywhere near the upper floors. He would text outside, and Han would find him leaning against the wall of the coffee shop with 2 drinks, one for each of them, and they would sit on a bench and talk about nothing until it was time to go back. On a Saturday in late spring, they went to the market. Rin wore a baseball cap pulled low and a jacket that was too casual for someone who usually dressed like he had a personal stylist hiding in his closet. Han teased him about it. You look like you're in witness protection. I just like the hat. You look 12. Thank you. They wandered. Rin bought flowers for Han's apartment because Han had mentioned liking fresh flowers at some point, and Rin had apparently filed that away. Han bought Rin an ugly ceramic mug from a vendor who was clearly an amateur potter. It was lopsided and the glaze was uneven, and Rin held it like Han had handed him something priceless. They ate on the waterfront, sat on a bench with their knees touching, and watched ferries cut lines through the gray water. The clouds were low and the air smelled like salt and rain that had not arrived yet. Rin reached for Han's hand, in broad daylight, in public. No elevator doors about to open, no hallway to duck into. Just his hand finding Han's, slowly, deliberately, with no walls to hide behind. Han let him take it. They sat like that for a long time. Two people on a bench, ordinary, invisible, together. What Han did not see was the stranger who bumped into Rin as they were leaving. An Omega woman, distracted by her phone, who collided with Rin's shoulder and then went rigid. She turned, looked at Rin, looked at the spot where their bodies had touched, like physical contact had let her catch what the suppressants normally hid. Rin tensed, his hand tightened on Han's. The woman stared for a long beat, then walked away, fast. Rin said nothing. His grip on Han's hand loosened after a few seconds, and they kept walking. Han did not notice. He was a beta. He could not have smelled what the woman smelled even if he had been paying attention. That was a Saturday. By Monday, the photo was everywhere, which brings us back to the bathroom stall and the article that blew Han's life open. He sat there reading it over and over, waiting for it to change. It did not change. Sungrin Huan. Alpha. Heir. Alpha. The cyclical sickness. The days Rin disappeared and locked his door and came back looking like he had been through something he could not name. That was not some medical condition. That was a rut. Rin had been going through ruts alone, on suppressants, with Han on the other side of a locked door, thinking he just had a bad immune system. Heir. The apartment that was too nice for an operations job. The way he paid for everything without blinking. The gift cards that never ran out. The jacket that cost more than Han's rent. And the beta-only app. The profile. The suppressants that made his scent invisible, so Han, a beta who could barely detect pheromones anyway, would never have a reason to question it. Han kept coming back to one thing. If Rin was an alpha, and not just any alpha but the heir to a conglomerate, then what was he doing with a beta? An alpha like that needed an omega. A bond. Pheromone compatibility. Designated heirs. Everything Han's body could not give. Was Rin just passing time? Was Han a phase he was working through before settling into the life his family expected? Or worse? Did Rin actually love him and just not think Han could handle the truth? He did not know which answer was worse. His phone buzzed. A text from Rin. Dinner tonight? Found a new place I want to try. Han turned off his phone. Told his team lead he was not feeling well. Left the building. He went home, locked the door, sat on his couch, and did not move. The crying came later, not loud, just steady and quiet and impossible to stop, because Rin was the first person he had ever let in. All those months on the app, all those forgettable dates, and the one person who had finally made him stop doubting himself had been lying the entire time. He had waited so long for this, and this was what he got. And it was not just about the deception, it was about biology, about whether his body was even built to be with someone like Rin. Rin called. Han watched the screen light up and did not answer. Rin texted. Everything okay? Then later. Han. Then later. Please, just let me know you're all right. The worry in those texts was real. Han could feel that. And it made everything harder, because how was he supposed to be angry at someone who was also clearly in love with him? By that evening, a knock on his door. Quiet. One knock, then nothing. Han. Rin's voice through the wood. I know you saw it. Han did not move from the couch. Please talk to me. Go away. I will, if that's what you want, but I think you deserve to hear it from me. I think I deserved the truth from the beginning. Silence on the other side of the door. Then softly, "Yeah, you did." Han pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes. "Are you even a beta?" A pause that lasted a century. "No." The word landed like a stone in a still pond. Han had known. Had known from the moment he read the word alpha in the article. But hearing it was different. Hearing it confirmed that the foundation of their meeting, a beta-only app for people who did not want designation to be the story, had been built on a lie that was designation deep. You were on a beta app, a beta-only app. The whole point of that app is that everyone on it is a beta. I know. So you made a fake profile. You took suppressants so I couldn't tell. You walked into every date, every conversation, every moment we had, knowing that the one thing I thought we had in common was a lie. That's accurate. Rin's voice was steady but strained, like a rope pulled taut. I'm not going to argue with any of that. Then what are you going to do? Sit on this floor and tell you the truth. All of it. Whether you open the door or not. Han heard a quiet thud and a shift of fabric. Rin was on the floor, sitting against the other side of the door. My name is Sungrin Huan, he said. I'm 30 years old. My family owns Yua Beauty. I've been CEO for a little over a year. I'm an alpha. I take medical-grade suppressants that reduce my scent to near beta levels, and I created a profile on Link Beta because I wanted to meet someone who had no idea about any of those things. Han said nothing, but he did not tell him to stop. Every relationship I've had has been about the name, or the money, or the designation. Omegas wanted the bond, the status, the security of being attached to someone with my family's resources. I don't blame them for it. It's how the world works. But I have spent my entire adult life going on dates where I could see the person across from me calculating my net worth before the appetizers arrived. His voice was steady, rehearsed. He had been dreading this conversation for months, and it sounded like it. I wanted to know if someone could want me without any of it. Without the alpha part, without the money, without the name that makes people treat me differently. I wanted to walk into a room and be nobody, just a guy who cooks dinner and watches bad movies and makes someone feel safe on a Tuesday night. Han's chest ached. He pressed his forehead against the back of the couch and listened. I matched with you, and from the first conversation, I knew I was in trouble. Because you were funny and sharp, and you said exactly what you meant, and you stole food off my plate on the first date like you'd known me for years. And I thought, this is what I was looking for. A breath. When you said you were starting at Yua Beauty, I panicked, but it was still early, still casual. I told myself the odds of you ever being in the same room as the CEO were basically zero. Different floors, different worlds, and I was right. You never were. And it worked. I got to be Rin. Just Rin. But you weren't just Rin. Han's voice came out rough. You were never just Rin. Rin doesn't exist. Rin is who I am when nobody's watching. He's the most honest version of me there is. That's a nice story. It's still a lie. Silence. Then, yeah, it is. Han sat in the quiet. The apartment was dark. He had not turned on the lights when he came home. And now the only illumination was the city bleeding through the window, gray and distant. You were my first, Han said. You know that, right? I had never been with anyone before you. I spent months on that app going on dates that went nowhere, thinking I was the problem, thinking I was too boring or too quiet for anyone to actually want. And then you showed up and made me believe I was wrong about all of that. You made me think I was worth staying for. I know. You don't know. You can't know what it's like to finally let someone in after years of thinking nobody would want you, and then finding out the person who changed your mind was performing the whole time. You told me about those dates. Second week. You said you'd started to think maybe you just weren't built for this. You said that matching with me felt like your luck had finally changed. Han's eyes burned. Because Rin had listened. Of course he had listened. Rin always listened. That was the cruelest part. He had heard Han confess his deepest insecurity, the fear that he was not enough for anyone, and then he had kept lying to him anyway. "I should have told you that night," Rin said through the door. "I almost did. I had the words ready, and then you looked at me like I was the safest person in the room, and I couldn't." A pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different, less rehearsed. "I wasn't expecting you. I went on that app thinking I'd go on a few dates, see if anyone could stand me without the money and the title, and it would probably go nowhere. That's how it always went. A few weeks, maybe a month, and then it fizzles and I go back to being Sungrin Huan and nothing changes. But then you stole food off my plate, and you texted me every morning, and you sat on my counter and laughed at me while I cooked. And every week I told myself, this week I'll tell him. And every week you'd say something or do something that made me think, if I tell him now, I'll lose this. And I was not ready to lose this." Han pressed his forehead against the door. "I know that makes it worse. I know that's selfish. I kept choosing one more week, one more dinner, one more morning in the elevator. And by the time I realized how deep I was in, I couldn't figure out how to say it without watching your face change. I was a coward. I'm sorry. You had months. I know. Months of me joking about the CEO being overrated and you just sitting there. Every time you brought him up, I wanted to tell you. But the longer I waited, the worse it got. And I was afraid of exactly this, of being on the other side of your door." Han stood up, walked to the door, put his palm flat against the wood. "Can I ask you one thing?" "Anything." "You're an alpha. I'm a beta. We can't bond. I can't give you heirs. I can't even help you through a rut. Your family is going to expect an omega. The board is going to expect an omega. The whole world you live in is built for alphas and omegas, and I'm neither." His voice cracked. "So why me? Why go through all of this for someone who doesn't even fit?" Rin was quiet for a long time. When he answered, his voice was stripped bare. "Because you fit me. I don't care what biology says I'm supposed to want. I know what I actually want, and it's you." "That's not how the world works, Rin." "Then the world is wrong." Han pressed his forehead against the door. His eyes were burning. "I believe you," he said after a while. "I believe you did it because you wanted something real. I believe you fell for me. I understand the why." He heard Rin shift on the other side of the door. "But the how, all those months, that's the part I can't get past right now." "I know." Han opened the door. Rin was on the floor, legs stretched out, back against the wall. He looked up at Han, and there was nothing corporate left in his face. Nothing controlled. Just a man on a hallway floor, terrified of losing the only thing that had ever been real. Han sat down across from him, leaned against the doorframe. They looked at each other across 3 feet of carpet. "What happens now?" Han asked. "Whatever you want to happen." "That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I've got. I spent months making decisions for both of us. I'm done with that." Han studied him. This man who was the same height as the figure he had seen across the atrium, who had the same dark hair, who was, apparently, the jawline that made his co-workers forget how to swallow their coffee. He looked at Rin's face and tried to see the CEO in it. Tried to see the heir, the name, the title. All he saw was the guy who cooked for him on weeknights and saved the best piece for last. "I need time," Han said. "Take it. I'm not saying it's over." Rin closed his eyes. The relief on his face was so visible it almost broke Han's resolve. "I'm saying I need to figure out if I can trust you again. And I need you to not manage that process. Not with money, not with gestures, not with grand explanations, just time." "Okay. And I need you to know that I fell for Rin. Not Mr. Wan. Not the heir. If those are different people, I need you to figure out which one you actually are." Rin opened his eyes. "They're not different. Rin is who I am. The rest is what I inherited." "Prove it." He did. Quietly. Without spectacle. He gave Han space. did not text unless Han texted first, did not show up at his apartment, did not use work proximity as an excuse to cross paths. When Han reached out days later with a simple, "Coffee tomorrow," Rin responded in seconds and brought 2 drinks to the bench outside the building and did not once try to steer the conversation toward what had happened. They rebuilt slowly. 1 coffee, then another, then a walk, then a dinner where they sat across from each other and Han asked questions and Rin answered every single one without deflection. "How much are you worth?" "More than either of us is comfortable with." "Your father, what's he like?" "Controlled, strategic. He sees family as an extension of business." "Does he know about me?" A pause. "Not yet." "What happens when he does?" "That depends on what we are when he finds out." Han accepted this, not because it was a good answer, but because it was honest. The workplace situation settled into something almost normal. Nobody at Han's level connected the dots. Rin was still Rin to Han and Mr. Huan was still the distant CEO that junior marketing coordinators never interacted with. The tabloid photo had generated gossip, but the blurred figure was unidentifiable, and the story cycled out of the news within a week. They started seeing each other again. Properly. Dinners and walks and Saturday mornings spent arguing about breakfast. The elevator handholds resumed, Rin's thumb on Han's knuckle, 3 floors, the quiet certainty of contact. But their time together was different now. Rin was deliberate with honesty, almost aggressively transparent, like he was trying to prove himself through sheer volume of truth. He told Han about board meetings, about difficult calls with suppliers, about the pressure of being the face of a company his father still controlled from behind the curtain. He stopped deflecting questions about his family. Rin smiled into his coffee. The elevator climbed, their shoulders touched. It was enough. Then the whispers started. Someone at the company had recognized Han, not from the tabloid photo, which had been blurred enough for plausible deniability, but from observation. The same elevator, the same lobby timing, the way the CEO's eyes tracked across the room when Han was present. Small things that were invisible to most people, but noticeable to anyone who was paying attention. Han first heard it from Wade, who pulled him into a conference room with a blank expression that was trying too hard to be blank. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Han's stomach clenched. "Okay. Are you seeing someone in the building?" The pause was a fraction too long. "What makes you ask that?" "Because there's a rumor going around, and I'd rather hear it from you than the break room." Han looked at his hands. "Oh, what's the rumor?" "That you're involved with someone on the executive floor." Wade's voice was even. "That someone is Mr. Huan." The floor tilted. "Who's saying that? Does it matter? Is it true?" Han did not answer. Wade read the silence correctly. "Okay, listen to me carefully. I don't care who you date. That's your business. But this company is a family operation, and the Huans are the family. If people start connecting you to the Heir, your life on this floor is going to change." "Change how?" "People are going to talk. Not because there's anything wrong with you, but because the Heir dating a junior marketing coordinator and a beta at that does not fit the narrative that anyone in this building expected. It's going to be the only thing people see when they look at you." Han flinched. The beta at that part. That was what got him. Because Wade was right. Normally, nobody cared about beta-beta or beta-alpha or any combination. Being a beta was unremarkable, but in the context of a conglomerate dynasty, an alpha heir with a beta partner became a story. In that world, a beta was not enough. Wade saw the flinch. "I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to make sure you know what's coming." "I know what's coming." "Do you?" Han did not answer because he did not. He had no idea what was coming. The gossip spread fast. Within a week, Han could feel it when he walked through the 6th floor. Not hostility, something worse. Curiosity laced with condescension. The sideways looks, The conversations that went quiet when he approached, the shift in tone when someone mentioned the CEO around him, testing, watching for a reaction. I heard Mr. Huan is dating someone from marketing. Like, junior marketing. A beta? Seriously? The Huan heir is dating a beta? I mean, no offense, but wouldn't you expect an omega at least? Someone from one of those families? Maybe it's just casual. It has to be casual. Right. Han heard all of it. The break room, the bathroom, the hallway. This was not Rin talking. This was Mr. Huan. Nobody gets to make you feel small in my building. That's exactly the problem. Han pulled his knees up on the couch. You fire someone for talking about us and every single person in that building will know I'm yours. And then I'm not Han from marketing anymore. I'm the CEO's boyfriend. That's all I am. Forever. Rin stopped pacing. The protectiveness was still there, visible in his shoulders, in his hands clenching and releasing, but he forced himself to listen. I hate that you're right, he said quietly. I know you want to fix it, but this isn't a board meeting. You can't restructure gossip. He almost smiled. Almost. They pulled back after that, further than before. The elevator rituals stopped. The lobby nods stopped. At work, they were strangers who happened to use the same front door, and it hurt. A specific, grinding ache that Han had not anticipated. The loss of the small things. The handholds, and the coffee, and the sticky notes. The secret language of two people pretending they were not in love in a building full of people who were starting to suspect they were. 3 weeks after the gossip started, Han's phone rang at his desk, an internal number he did not recognize. Mr. Che? A woman's voice, crisp and neutral. The chairman would like to see you. 23rd floor, this afternoon at 4. Han's mouth went dry. The chairman? Mr. Victor Huan, he's available at 4. Shall I confirm? He confirmed. He did not tell Rin. Then he spent the next 3 hours staring at his screen, seeing nothing, while his heart performed a drumline in his throat. At 3:55, Han took the elevator to the 23rd floor. The 23rd floor smelled like money pretending to be tasteful. Muted colors, fresh-cut flowers in crystal vases, a silence so thick it felt purchased. A receptionist directed Han down a hallway lined with portraits of men who all shared the same jaw and the same expression, certainty that the world would arrange itself around them. Victor Huan's office was at the end. The door was already open. The man behind the desk did not stand when Han entered. He did not need to. The room oriented around him without effort. He was tall, silver-haired, dressed so precisely that Rin's relaxed style suddenly looked like a deliberate rebellion. Mr. Che, please sit. Han sat. The chair was leather and expensive, and somehow made him feel smaller. The chairman studied him like an acquisition target. Not with cruelty, with assessment. Do you know why you're here? I can guess. Then I'll spare us both the formalities. The chairman's hands were folded on the desk, still and precise. I'm aware of your relationship with my son. I've been aware of it for some time. Han said nothing. His pulse was hammering, but his face was still. He had spent years being the quiet one, the forgettable one, the beta who disappeared into the background of every room. He had learned to keep his face neutral long before this moment. Shah, I want to be clear that this is not personal. You seem like a capable young man. Your performance reviews are strong. Your team lead speaks well of you. Thank you. That said, his gaze did not waver. My son is the heir to a family enterprise that has been building for 3 generations. His choices have consequences that extend well beyond his personal happiness. An alpha of his position is expected to bond with someone whose biology and background align with the family's long-term interests. An omega, Han said, flat, not a question. An omega with a compatible designation profile, yes. someone who can produce designated heirs, someone whose family brings strategic value. This is not sentiment, it's architecture. Every generation builds on the one before it. Han's jaw tightened. And a beta doesn't build anything. His expression did not change. A beta cannot bond with an alpha. No claiming bite will take, no designated offspring. In a family context, that represents a biological discontinuation of the alpha line. In a corporate context, it represents instability. Board members, investors, partner families, they watch these things. They interpret them. They interpret who your son dates. They interpret what his choices signal about his judgment and priorities, fairly or not. The room was very quiet. Han could hear the ventilation system breathing. Somewhere below, thousands of people were working in a building with this man's name on it. And none of them knew that 2 floors above their heads, a 24-year-old beta was being told in the most polished language possible that he was not enough. "What do you want from me?" Han asked. "I want you to understand the reality of the situation. If this relationship continues, your position at this company will become untenable, not through any action of mine, through the natural consequence of proximity to scrutiny. You will be transferred. Your projects will be reassigned. Eventually, the professional environment will make your continued employment impractical. You're threatening to push me out." "I'm describing what will happen. There's a difference." He opened a drawer and placed a folder on the desk. "I've prepared a severance package. Generous. A strong reference letter. It's not conditional on anything except your resignation." Han looked at the folder, cream-colored. Expensive paper. Probably cost more to print than his rent. "I'm going to be honest with you, Mr. Huan. Please. I don't want your money. I don't want your reference. I want your son. And I think you already know that, which is why you invited me here instead of just making my job impossible and waiting for me to quit." The chairman's jaw moved, barely. The faint, grudging acknowledgement of someone who had expected an easy negotiation and found resistance instead. "My son is an alpha," the chairman said quietly. "He was raised for a specific role with specific expectations. Infatuation fades. Biology does not. When the novelty of this arrangement wears off, he will want what his nature demands, a bond, a family built on compatible designation, and you will not be able to give him that. Maybe, maybe not, but that's his decision, not yours." He looked at him for a long moment. Then he slid the folder an inch closer. "The offer remains open." Han stood. "No, it doesn't." He walked out of the office with his back straight and his hand steady and made it all the way to the elevator before his knees buckled and he had to lean against the wall to keep from sliding to the floor. He told Rin that evening. All of it. Word for word, as close as he could remember. Rin's face went still. Then something behind his eyes shifted, and when he spoke, his voice belonged to someone Han barely recognized. The other one. The one whose signature could end careers. "He had no right. He thinks he has every right. He's your father. He summoned you to his office, a 24-year-old junior coordinator. He sat you in a chair and tried to buy you off like a severance package." Rin's voice was low, controlled, and absolutely dangerous. "Did he threaten you?" "He described what would happen if I stayed, which is the same thing in a nicer suit." Rin pulled out his phone. "What are you doing?" "Calling him." "Rin, stop." Han put his hand on Rin's arm. "I handled it. I said no. I walked out." "You should not have had to handle it at all. That is my father, my problem. He went around me to get to you because he knew I'd never let him within a mile of you if I'd known." Han looked at him, at the fury barely held in check. Rin had instinctively moved closer, putting himself between Han and the door like the threat was physical and not a conversation that had happened hours ago. "I'm okay," Han said. "You don't look okay. Your hands haven't stopped shaking since you started talking. Han looked down. Rin was right. He had not noticed. Rin sat beside him on the couch, close, their shoulders touching. He did not reach for Han's hand, just pressed his arm against Han's, solid and warm, an anchor. "I am going to fix this," Rin said, quiet, certain. "How?" "I don't know yet, but he does not get to touch you. That is not negotiable. He's the chairman of a board. That doesn't give him authority over my personal life. Rin, he basically told me he's going to make my job disappear. I won't let that happen. You might not be able to stop it. He controls the board. He controls the company. He controls everything except you, and that's exactly what's driving him crazy." Rin was pacing. Long strides across Han's small living room. Even through his suppressants, his scent was pushing through at the edges. Stress did that. Made the medication less effective. Han could not detect it, but if there had been an Omega in the building, they would have felt it. "I'll talk to him," Rin said. "I'll make it clear that this isn't negotiable." "And if he gives you an ultimatum?" Rin stopped pacing, looked at Han. "What kind of ultimatum?" "The kind where he makes you choose, the company or me." "That won't happen, Rin. It won't happen because I won't let it get that far. I'll handle it." But it did get that far. Less than a week later. Han did not know what happened in the conversation between Rin and his father. Rin did not tell him. All Han knew was that Rin went quiet for 2 days, canceled their Wednesday dinner, and then called on a Tuesday evening with a voice that was wrong, controlled, manufactured, like he was reading from a script he had written for himself. "Can I come over? I need to talk to you." Han knew. He knew from the tone, from the careful neutrality, from Rin saying need instead of want. He knew the way you know a storm is coming from the pressure drop even when the sky is clear. "Sure." Rin arrived fast. He stood in Han's doorway and did not come in. His face was composed. His hands were in his pockets and Han could see the outline of fists through the fabric. "I think we should stop seeing each other." The words landed in the space between them and sat there, ugly and precise. "Okay," Han said. "Say the rest." "There is no rest. This was a mistake. I was selfish to think the designation gap didn't matter, and I was naive to think we could make it work inside that building. You deserve someone who doesn't complicate your life. Someone in your world. You're reading lines. I'm being realistic. You're lying to me again." Rin flinched. Barely. A micro-movement that someone who had not spent months memorizing his face would have missed entirely. But Han had spent months memorizing his face, and he saw it, and it confirmed everything. "Your father gave you the ultimatum." Rin said nothing. "He told you to end it, or he'd remove you as CEO. And you're standing in my doorway pretending this is your decision. Because you think if I believe you chose this, it'll hurt less." Rin's jaw was locked so tight Han could see the muscle jumping. His eyes were bright, and it had nothing to do with the hallway lighting. "It doesn't matter why," Rin said. "The result is the same. It matters. It matters because the difference between I don't want you and I'm sacrificing you to protect you is the difference between me being sad and me being furious. Be furious then. Be whatever you need to be. But this is done. Get out." Rin did not move for a long second. His throat worked. His hands in his pockets were shaking visibly now, the fabric trembling. He looked at Han like he was memorizing him. Then he turned and walked away. Han closed the door, locked it, walked to the kitchen. Sat down on the floor because the floor was the lowest point in the room and he needed to be as low as possible. He pressed his back against the cabinets and stared at the opposite wall and went still. Rin made it to his car, sat behind the wheel, did not start the engine, pressed his forehead against the steering wheel and breathed in rough, shallow pulls that fogged the windshield. Even through the suppressants, his scent was leaking. Stress did that sometimes. Pushed through the pharmaceutical barrier. The car smelled like rain and sesame and something sharp. He sat there for a long time. Han went to work the next day, and the day after, and the day after that. He sat at his desk, answered emails, attended meetings, smiled when Wade looked at him sideways with that concerned expression, said, "I'm fine," enough times that the words lost their vowels. He was not fine, but he was functional, and functional was what got you through the days when fine was not on the table. The gossip evolved. People noticed the distance, noticed that Han no longer took the same elevator, noticed that the energy between the 6th floor and the executive level had gone from charged silence to dead air. The whispers adjusted. I think they broke up. Obviously, like that was ever going to work. Kind of feel bad for him. He's a nice guy, just way out of his depth. Better he figures it out now than later, right? Han heard it all. Let it wash over him. Because the alternative was screaming in a conference room, and he did not have the energy. Wade cornered him a few days later, not with questions, with a sandwich which he set on Han's desk without preamble. You look like you haven't eaten since Tuesday. I've eaten. Liar. Wade sat on the edge of the desk. You don't have to tell me what happened, but I need you to know something. Han looked up. You're the hardest working person on this floor. You've been here less than 6 months and you've already outperformed coordinators with 3 years on you. Whatever's happening in your personal life, it doesn't change that. And anyone in this building who can't see your value because they're too busy calculating your designation isn't worth your time. Han's eyes burned. He blinked hard. Thank you. Also, the salmon in that sandwich is really good, so don't let it go to waste. Han ate the sandwich. It was good, and the kindness behind it made his eyes sting. That night, alone in his apartment, Han sat at his kitchen table and thought about it clearly for the first time. He was not going to get his normal life back inside that building. It did not matter if the gossip died down. It did not matter if people moved on to the next scandal. He would always be the coordinator who dated the heir. Every project, every promotion, every interaction would carry that footnote. And he did not want to spend the next few years wondering whether people valued his work or his proximity. He wanted Rin. He was sure about that, but he wanted Rin on his own terms, outside of that building, away from the whispers. He wrote the resignation letter that night. Short, professional, effective in 2 weeks. He was not running. He was choosing. The next morning, he hand-delivered it to HR. Then he called Rin. Rin picked up on the first ring. Han, I resigned. A pause. What? I resigned. This morning. Because of my father. Because of what he said to you. Han, I told you I was going to handle. It's not about your father. Han was sitting on the floor of his apartment, back against the wall. It's about me. I want to be with you. I'm sure about that. But I can't do it inside that building. Every time I walk through the lobby, people look at me and all they see is your name. I'm not a person there anymore. I'm a headline. I can fix that. I can make it, you can't fix what people think. And I don't want you to try. I don't want to be the reason you fight with HR or restructure departments or have meetings about me. I just want to be your boyfriend at a restaurant. I want to hold your hand in public and not have it end up on a news site. So I'm leaving the building, and I'm staying with you. Rin was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rough. You're leaving the job, but not me. I'm leaving the job so I can keep you. There's a difference. Han. Yeah? I'm coming over. You're at work. I don't care. He showed up at Han's apartment in his suit, tie loosened, looking like he had walked out of a meeting without explanation. Han opened the door and Rin pulled him in. Not a hug exactly, just his arms around Han, tight and close, his chin resting on top of Han's head. Han pressed his face into Rin's chest and let himself be held. They stood like that in the doorway for a long time. "I talked to my father," Rin said into Han's hair, "after you told me what happened in his office. I drove to the estate that night." Han pulled back to look at him. "What did you say?" "That he had no right to go behind my back. That if he had a problem with who I'm dating, he brings it to me, not to you. That you are not a variable he gets to eliminate." "What did he say?" "Not much. He listened. He's not going to apologize. That's not who he is. But he's not going to interfere again either." "How do you know?" "Because I told him that if he touches my personal life again, I will make it very public and very uncomfortable for the company. And he knows I mean it." Han studied his face. "You threatened your own father. I protected you. There's a difference." Han's throat tightened. He leaned back into Rin's chest. Rin's arms closed around him again. "I'm going to find another job," Han said. "A good one. And we're going to date like normal people. Go to restaurants, hold hands on the street. You can cook for me at my place and I'll sit on the counter and steal your food and we won't have to worry about who sees us." "That sounds like a plan." "It's not a plan. It's a starting point." Rin pulled back just enough to look at him. "Can I add something to the starting point?" "Depends." "Marry me." Han blinked. "What?" "Marry me." Rin said it the same way he said everything that mattered. Steady. Certain. No performance. "I know it's early. I know we've only been together for a few months. I know that by any reasonable standard this is too fast. But I have spent my entire life surrounded by people who wanted me for what I represent. And you are the only person who has ever made me feel like who I am is enough. And I am not interested in being reasonable about that. You don't have a ring. I'll get one. We're standing in my doorway. I'll propose again somewhere better if you want. I'll do it at the restaurant. I'll do it on the waterfront. I'll do it wherever you want. But I needed to say it now because I have been thinking about it since the night you let me back in after the tabloid, and I am done waiting for the right moment." Han looked at him. This man who ran a company and could not ask a simple question without turning it into a speech. Who had cooked him dinner on their kitchen floor and held his hand for 3 floors every morning and stepped between him and a stranger on a dark sidewalk and driven to his father's estate to draw a line. "Yes," Han said. Rin's face did something Han had never seen before. The composure did not crack. It just dissolved, all at once, like it had never been there, and what was underneath was open and raw and completely unguarded, and it was the most beautiful thing Han had ever seen on another person's face. "Yeah?" Rin's voice cracked. "Yeah." Rin kissed him, hands on his face, pulling him in. Han kissed him back and tasted salt and realized one of them was crying and did not check which one. 6 months later, Han's apartment was smaller than his old one and twice as alive. He had found a new job at a smaller company, marketing for a local outfit that cared about his work, not his last name. The pay was less. The work was good. He went home at a normal hour and nobody whispered when he walked through the lobby. Rin was still at Yua Beauty, still the heir, still in meetings and on calls and managing the machinery of a company that bore his family's name. His father had stepped back from direct involvement, not dramatically, just gradually, the way older men cede territory when they realize the fight is not worth it. They spoke on the phone occasionally, short calls, polite. The relationship was not warm. It had never been warm, but it was stable, and for the Huan family that was close enough. Rin still wore his suppressants, had always worn them, would always wear them. They caused no harm, and they let him move through the world without his designation preceding him into every room. At work, at restaurants, on the street. The suppressants were not a disguise anymore. They were just practical. Han could not smell him either way. The ruts were still hard. They came every few months and there was no getting around them. But things were different now. Han stayed. He could not ease the biological part, could not do what an Omega's body could do, and they both knew that. But he could be in the next room, could press a cold cloth to Rin's forehead when the fever spiked, could hold his hand through the worst of it and talk to him in the dark until Rin's breathing slowed, could cook for him after, sit close, let Rin lean into him without having to explain why he needed to. It was not what biology prescribed, it was what they had, and Rin told him once, voice still rough from days of it, that Han's presence during a rut did more for him than any pheromone exchange could. Han did not fully believe that, but he held on to it. On a Saturday evening in autumn, they were on the rooftop of Han's building. Takeout between them, a bottle of something cheap, the Seattle skyline going gray to gold. They were arguing about whether the place near the waterfront, their first date spot, was still good, or whether Han's new neighborhood had better options. The ring on Han's left hand caught the light when he gestured. "The waterfront place is better," Rin said. "The waterfront place is the same as it was months ago. You just like it because you're sentimental." "I'm not sentimental." "You kept the ugly mug." "The mug is a work of art." "The mug is lopsided and the glaze is peeling. I proposed to you in a doorway and you said yes. You don't get to lecture me about standards." Han laughed. Rin watched him laugh with that look he got sometimes, steady and warm and a little stunned, like he still could not believe this was his life. The rain started. Light at first, then steady. Neither of them moved. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell me your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear from you.